I don't know about you, but I've been hearing a lot lately about Christian nationalism. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, just to sum it up as simply as possible, it is the belief that the United States of America is a Christian nation and that the government must do whatever it can to ensure that it stays that way. It kind of fuses Christianity with the nation in a way that insists, in order for us to be a nation, we must be Christian, and we must be overtly Christian, and we must be defined that way, not just as individuals but as a collective group. Um, and there are a lot of potentially damaging and destructive outcomes for that kind of thinking. I will acknowledge, I think there are some people who, out of a deep love for God and for the church, feel as though the best way to advance God's agenda and the future of the church is to align it with the nation in such a way that the force of the nation reinforces the role and the influence of the church. I think that some people feel that way because they look around and they see that the church's influence is waning, and that there are people who are skeptical of the church, and there are people who are maybe even angry at or who reject the church. And it scares them, and I understand that. But I also, I think there's a quote that I read this week by Andrew Sullivan. I don't know who Andrew Sullivan is, but I really liked the quote. He says this: "When you fuse Christianity with power, it isn't long before Christians start imposing the cross on others rather than taking it up for themselves." Jesus in the Gospel of Luke, I think it was chapter 9, said, "If anyone would follow me, if anyone would be my disciple, they must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and come and follow me." The invitation to be a disciple of Jesus, and the invitation to be a part of the community of faith that calls itself Christian, isn't an invitation to impose the cross on other people. It's the invitation to take up a cross. It's an invitation to do like Jesus, who, rather than using a cross as a means of converting people, rather than using punishment and violence and power to convert people to his way of thinking, chose instead to be placed upon a cross. Don't forget that it was power that put Jesus to death. It was an empire that put Jesus to death. And fusing empire with the cross doesn't give the cross more power. It instead validates what oftentimes is the corruption of power. And so we as Christians have a responsibility to recognize that whatever else it may mean, God doesn't need the nation to advance the work and the cause of God. God doesn't need the nation in order to provide healing for the world. God doesn't need the nation to offer love and grace and mercy. God didn't establish the nation. God established the church. God established the body of Christ. And as the body of Christ, we are invited to take up our cross and to follow God into the future, whatever that may mean. That, to me, is the biggest reason why I think we as the church need to resist and fight against this kind of pervasive understanding that America has to be some sort of Christian nation in order for us as the church to continue to flourish.